When most people imagine a data breach, they picture something dramatic. A hacker in a dark room, rapid typing, firewalls collapsing, security systems flashing red. But that's rarely how breaches actually begin. Most data breaches don't start with chaos. They start with something ordinary. A routine login, normal email, a standard file request. Nothing that looks urgent, nothing that looks suspicious. Just normal behavior. That's what makes them dangerous.
Breach Bites TV.
Attackers don't rely on extraordinary moments. They rely on predictable ones. They look for the routines that happen every single day inside organizations and personal workflows. Logging in from home, resetting a password, sharing a document, approving a push notification. These are mundane actions. They don't trigger fear. They don't feel risky. And that's exactly why they work. Think about phishing emails. The most successful ones don't scream you've won a prize anymore. They mimic internal conversations. A request from a manager, a shared invoice, calendar invite, something that fits neatly into the flow of the day. The victim isn't doing anything reckless. They're responding the same way they respond to dozens of legitimate requests. The compromise begins inside normalcy. Credential theft works the same way. When an employee logs into what appears to be a legitimate portal, they enter their username and password. Maybe they complete two-factor authentication. From their perspective, they simply logged in. From the attacker's perspective, valid credentials were captured. The action was ordinary. The outcome was not. This is why many breach reports include the phrase using valid credentials. That phrase is easy to overlook, but it's revealing. It means the attacker didn't break in through brute force. They didn't smash through encryption. Used the front door because the system believed they were supposed to be there. Normal behavior creates cover. When an attacker uses stolen credentials during business hours from a familiar geographic region and accesses systems in expected ways, detection becomes difficult. Security monitoring tools look for anomalies. If behavior appears routine, it blends into the background. The attack hides inside expected patterns. There's also a human psychology element here. People are trained to spot extreme warning signs, suspicious links, strange attachments, obvious typos, but attackers have improved. Modern phishing campaigns are polished, grammar is correct, branding is accurate, timing is strategic, so the victim doesn't feel alarmed. They feel productive. They believe they are completing a task. Normal behavior also explains why lateral movement inside networks can go unnoticed. Once an attacker gains initial access, they don't immediately trigger destruction. They explore slowly. They access files that align with the compromised account's permissions. They escalate privileges gradually. Each step mirrors what a legitimate employee might do. The system sees continuity, not intrusion. This is one reason insider threats are so difficult to detect. From a technical perspective, the behavior may look identical to a trusted user. Accessing files, downloading data, sharing information. The difference is intent. And intent is not visible in logs. Security systems measure actions, not motivation. Convenience amplifies this effect. Persistent login sessions mean users don't re-authenticate constantly. Shared cloud drives mean collaboration happens fluidly. Automatic syncing moves data across devices seamlessly. All of these are normal, beneficial behaviors. But if an attacker gains access at any point in that chain, the same normal workflows enable rapid spread. There's also the speed factor. Normal actions are executed quickly. An email is opened without hesitation. Push notification is approved reflexively. A link is clicked between meetings. Attackers depend on momentum. They know that in a busy environment, people operate on autopilot. And autopilot reduces scrutiny. Security awareness training often focuses on spotting malicious activity. But it's harder to train someone to question something that looks entirely legitimate. When a request aligns perfectly with expectations, skepticism feels unnecessary. In fact, excessive skepticism can slow down work and create friction. So employees are subtly encouraged to trust normal workflows. Many large-scale breaches begin with something that would look harmless in isolation. A single compromised account, single reused password, a single approved notification. On its own, that action seems insignificant. But attackers chain small, ordinary actions together. One login leads to another. One access token leads to elevated permissions. One compromised inbox leads to multiple internal phishing attempts. The phrase blast radius is often used in cybersecurity. It refers to how far damage can spread from an initial compromise. When normal behavior is deeply integrated across systems, shared credentials, synchronized services, trusted devices, the blast radius expands because trust is interconnected. There's also an emotional component. People don't want to believe that routine behavior can cause harm. It feels unfair. I just logged in. I just clicked a document. I just approved a request. And that's true. The action was small. But attackers design systems where small actions unlock larger pathways. If you analyze major breach case studies, a pattern emerges. Rarely is the first step spectacular. It's usually subtle. A phishing email that blended in, a password reused across services, a help desk request that bypassed verification procedures. Each event on its own seemed manageable. The impact only becomes visible in hindsight. This reframes how we think about cybersecurity. It's not about avoiding dramatic mistakes. It's about recognizing how predictable patterns can be manipulated. Attackers don't need you to act irrationally. They need you to act normally at the wrong moment. That's a difficult concept, because normal behavior is necessary for productivity. You can't question every email endlessly. You can't treat every login as a potential breach. Work would stop. So the solution isn't paranoia. It's contextual awareness. Was I expecting this? Did I initiate this action? Does this align with my recent activity? Organizations attempt to address this with anomaly detection and behavioral analytics. Systems flag logins from unusual locations or devices. They monitor abnormal data transfers. They score risk dynamically. These tools help. But they are reactive by design. They look for deviation. If the attacker stays close enough to the baseline, detection becomes harder. This is why layered defenses matter. It's not because any single tool is perfect, but because small deviations compound. Shorter session lifetimes reduce persistence. Hardware-bound authentication reduces credential replay. Network segmentation limits lateral movement. Each layer narrows the gap between normal behavior and exploitability. At a personal level, understanding this pattern changes how you approach daily interactions. Instead of asking, "Does this look obviously malicious?" ask, "Was this initiated by me?" That single shift reframes evaluation. Many successful attacks rely on injecting themselves into existing workflows. Interrupting that assumption breaks the chain. The broader theme across this series becomes clearer here. Security fails when it assumes that normal equals safe. Password rules fail because reuse feels normal. Smart people get hacked because confidence feels normal. Two-factor authentication isn't enough because approval becomes normal. Identity is fragile because signals feel normal. Convenience accelerates normal behavior. And attackers operate inside that normality. The goal isn't to disrupt productivity or live in constant suspicion. It's to understand that cybersecurity is less about dramatic defense and more about mindful interruption. Small pauses, small confirmations, small friction at key moments. Because breaches don't begin with explosions, they begin with routine. When you hear about the next major breach, remember that it likely started quietly. A normal login, a normal email, a normal approval. The extraordinary damage came later. Beginning was ordinary. If you found this breakdown helpful, consider subscribing. This channel explores how psychology, system design, and everyday behavior shape cybersecurity more than most people realize. We're not just talking about tools, we're talking about patterns. And the more you understand those patterns, the harder you are to exploit. I'll see you in the next one.